There's a new generation Hyundai Palisade coming to the Australian market and it's going to be here by the end of the year. But today we are getting our first taste and a bit of an idea of what to expect with this large SUV. And check it out, I do mean large. We're talking 7-seat or 8-seat capacity here, a whole lot of new technology and features. This is an all new interior, all new chassis, a lot of stuff going on. There's even a new hybrid powertrain as well. That's right, no more diesel in the Hyundai Palisade. Prices are expected to go up, but there's a lot to talk about here. Let's have a closer look at what we can expect. We don't yet know exact pricing for this new generation Hyundai Palisade, but you can expect it to arrive at around $90,000 for what we have here, which is the top spec calligraphy model. So the Palisade arrives first in this top trim level, but we can expect other models to join the range in the coming months. If the price does land at around that $90,000 mark, it represents a significant jump over the model that it replaces. However, it does have a pretty high level of standard equipment. There's heated and vented front seats with Nappa leather, heated and vented second row seats with electric adjustment, and even a heated third row, which is also adjusted electrically. Diesel has been discontinued here, but instead we have a new 2.5 litre turbocharged hybrid powertrain, and it's got outputs of 245 kilowatts and 460 newton meters. That is helped along by a 6-speed automatic transmission, which powers all 4 wheels and includes 2 electric motors. Claimed fuel consumption is around 6.8 litres per 100 according to Hyundai. Now we haven't had the chance to fully test this out yet, but that number does look impressive on paper at least. Exterior dimensions have grown a bit in terms of length and wheelbase over the previous generation model, and in comparison to the Hyundai Santa Fe, this is absolutely a bigger beast. I think one of the main reasons why you'd be looking at this Hyundai Palisade is for the interior and the amount of space and spec that you get. Yes, this is a big vehicle and some people will buy it for that presence on the outside, but this is a family car at the end of the day. And well, one look at the interior here, you can see how far this is a move forward for the Palisade in particular. This is quite a nice place to be. A very modern design as well, even if this terracotta sort of brown color maybe isn't your vibe, you can see that this just looks and feels very new. But let's talk about practicalities, because I think that is really important here. We've got this new dashboard design here, but along with a regular old glove box there's a handy little shelf in there, which would be quite useful for putting things like phones and wallets and that sort of thing. And because we've got the gear shifter now up here on the steering column, that means we've got more room around this area just for raw storage. And this is something that we've seen in the Santa Fe and it works well here. 2 cup holders, a lot of space down the front here for bigger things as well. We've got lots of USB power outlets. They're high powered. There's even a 12 volt there as well. Center console, it's not massive I suppose, but there is room for a shelf in the second row, and I'll get to that in a minute. But one thing I personally really like about the interior here of this new Palisade is that they still have some physical controls. In particular, you've got a separate setup of climate controls here with dials and buttons, so you know where they are. You don't need to dig through the infotainment display to get to them. You've also got a physical volume control there, a whole bunch of other buttons as well. It just makes this a lot easier to use in terms of everyday practicality, but at the same time, I think it looks great. It's modern. This feels very upmarket on the inside, so it's playing both sides of that quite nicely. Now you might be wondering why you would choose this Palisade instead of something like a Santa Fe, which is really well packaged overall and does come at a lower price. Well, firstly, there's a lot more features going on here in terms of specs, standard equipment and that sort of thing, but you've also got the advantage of having some different layout setups in the back. So this is currently the calligraphy as a 7-seater. So we've got 2 here and 3 in the back, and it's interesting because this actually gives you room to walk through into that third row if you want. Now we've also got electrically adjusting second and third row seats in here. We've got heating and venting in the back, but you can go for the full 8-seat setup if you prefer. And in terms of the way this feels like to sit in, it does feel pretty good. This is quite spacious, quite comfortable. That is not my seating position up front there at the moment because we've got that easy access seat. So it's actually slid backwards a little bit in terms of my seating position, but I've still got pretty good legroom here. And the cool thing about this Palisade, I think in particular, is you've actually got a sliding and reclining third row with heating. So you're not missing out on features in the back there. So if you're really valuing comfort across all 3 rows and nice features as well, this Palisade does look and feel pretty good. The big news about this new Palisade is the fact that they're dropping diesel power. Now that accounted for a huge majority of sales. Yes, there was a front-wheel drive petrol model available, but not many people went for that. They wanted diesel, they wanted the efficiency, but they wanted all-wheel drive as well. Now this Palisade, there is no diesel anymore. Diesel is a trickier thing to do these days in terms of emissions and all of that sort of thing. So we've got a hybrid setup here, and it is an interesting one because we've got a 2.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol. Now that is similar to what you get in a Hyundai Santa Fe, for example, but it's down on power. But in between a 6-speed automatic transmission and that engine, you've got 2 electric motors sandwiched in there. So one of those mostly does the recuperation, the power generation, I suppose, to charge up the 300-volt battery. And then you've got another one which can drive the car. So in terms of the driving experience, this is similar to what you get in a Toyota hybrid, I suppose, is the way to look at it. It's different to a Nissan hybrid where you've got a petrol engine that is only a generator. This does work as a generator, but it can also drive the wheels. And being a 6-speed automatic, you probably hear the engine that's just kicked on there. It does run up and down through the gears, similar to other Hyundai and Kia hybrids, I guess. Now it's a relatively big engine, 2.5 litres with a turbocharger, and you do hear it running as it kicks on and kicks off. But the important thing in here, I think, is the seamless operation of both of them. So as you're driving along, it comes on and it comes off. Yes, you can hear it, but it doesn't jerk, it doesn't thud, it doesn't give you a sudden surge of acceleration or anything like that. So that works quite well. And Hyundai reckons that this will use as little as 6.8 litres per 100 on the combined cycle. Now this indicative drive to start with, I've got nowhere near that, but it's been a short drive on a closed loop. So we'll know a little bit more about this in the future, I think. But the driving experience otherwise, it's good. This is a big bus, so don't expect it to be nimble and agile through the corners, but it is definitely well mannered. It's got really good noise insulation. This is quite a quiet vehicle in terms of wind and road noise and that sort of thing. You hear that engine humming away, yes. But the ride quality is good also. These rear dampers, which are self-leveling mechanical dampers, quite an interesting bit of gear, but they work well from this point of view. Although I do have to say, this initial test drive has been quite short, and this is a pre-production model as well, which has been brought up to be pretty much exactly what you would expect out of a production car. So indications are good. This does ride nicely, it does steer well enough. I mean, this is a big vehicle, right? So it's not going to thread its way through the corners quite so easily as a hot hatch, but it is well mannered, it's placed on the road pretty well. So all indications are that this is going to be a nice, big, comfy cruiser for the family. It's going to fit that bill really well. Now, I haven't had the chance to smash it over any speed bumps, hit any major potholes and that sort of thing, so we're going to be able to learn a little bit more about this vehicle when it launches by the end of the year, but also when we get one through the garage to put it through its paces properly as time comes. Another thing to talk about here with the powertrain is, of course, acceleration, and it's a big vehicle this, so it's not exactly neck snapping fast, but it is rapid and it is quite responsive as well. When you press that pedal down, the engine kicks in, it drops a gear, but those electric motors do have a fair bit of punch there as well that I can feel. So this is smooth and responsive and plenty fast enough for the application, I think, so that's really good. So for a first taste of this new Palisade, I think it is really interesting and compelling. This really shows the continuing evolution, I think, of Hyundai as a brand. They're moving into higher price brackets. They're moving into more sophisticated vehicles with more spec, more features, more details, but also more sophistication in the way they look and feel in terms of the driving experience and the interior and the tech and that sort of thing. So yes, this car, well, the price is going to start with a 9, so it's definitely not cheap. From me, at the moment, I feel like I'm getting a lot of car for the money in terms of the size, but also the spec and the quality as well. So we don't know everything about this car just yet. I do have to stress that, but first indications are good. Make sure you have subscribed to Drive on YouTube to make sure you don't miss the full review of this Hyundai Palisade coming up in the future and every other important new car on the Australian market. And to read the full review, head to Drive.com.au.